Hi, everybody. Welcome to Painting in the Pandemic. I am standing in Severe Ventura at 4 West 43rd Street on 5th Avenue. The great Neil Kerman abstract expressionist is now in Neil Kerman Gallery in Brooklyn, and we're going to be soon interviewing our special guest star, Peter, who's standing over there with his paintings. But first, tonight we're introducing the show, the Humanistic Revival, virtual and physical show. There are other people in there, all masked, watching the exhibit in person, and we're going to be discussing it soon. But first, we want to just discuss Humanistic Revival. What does that mean? Most of it is bodies, it's portraiture, and it's the physical self, and it's kind of like the Renaissance, where they went from the classical theory, nature, fantasy, back to the self, exploring the self. So it's a classical revival of that study of the human nature, of the character of human nature. And in fact, later when Neil introduces our guest star over here, Peter, you will see what he does with dance. Amazing stuff. And we're going to show you now a virtual show. We are in the gallery now with Peter Heywood, one of the 7 artists, and Neil Kerman is going to introduce Peter, even though I'm standing right next to him.
Hi there, everyone. Welcome. Hope you're all safe in New York City. We're happy to have Peter with us. A little information about Peter. He was born in Yorkshire, England. He was a math and physics teacher for over 30 years. In 1995, he was voted Britain's best teacher. While teaching, he devoted a majority of his time to painting. After having a one-man show in London's Savile Road, he made a major decision to become a full-time painter to the best of everybody, for the best of everybody. He traveled all over the world. In South Africa, he created landscapes. In Venice, he was inspired by their architecture. In 2011, spending more time in America, he began painting New York's famous landmarks as seen through the reflections of neighboring buildings. Welcome, Peter. Thank you for joining us this evening. And the first question I'd like to ask you, which many people ask, how did the pandemic affect you and your family here in New York City?
Well, clearly we got to know each other better because we were locked in and stayed throughout the whole time, really. And me doing most of the cooking, it was difficult. But at least I had my escape. I could get out into my studio and paint. And that really, I helped keep my sanity. And I'm very grateful that I could do that. And as a result, I was painting ballet dancers, as you can see around, and I felt that towards the end, these people could not participate in their art. They were trapped, and it seemed to me, I'm fairly old now, and yet these young people, if they couldn't work, they probably only had a life expectancy in the theatre of 10 years. And so to take a year out of their life was particularly cruel. It was about 10% of their working life. And that's why I'm very keen to give
Peter, did you work in your house or you went to a studio?
I've got a studio within the building. I'm very lucky.
Wow.
My wife let me, she was married originally to Abe Rosenthal, the editor of the New York Times. And when he passed, and she wrote novels, and they had a studio an apartment on the ground floor where they both wrote. And therefore, when I came along, she let me use that as a studio. So I'm blessed. I'm very lucky. I've got a wonderful...
Very nice, very lucky. Do you miss for 30 years, a math teacher, a physics teacher? Do you miss it?
I love teaching. I went to school every day. I was very lucky. I was blessed. I had a wonderful time there. Actually, a lot of my time while I was teaching was kind of social work with the deprived children in my school. It was a state comprehensive school of 2,000 children. And at weekends often I took some of the children home to live with me because they had problems with their families. And I just lived for my teaching. I loved my teaching and devoted a lot of time to it.
Did you teach any art?
No, and I'm quite pleased I didn't teach art. Physics was a particularly interesting
physics.
I taught physics,
wow.
Yeah, because there's the problems, you can do the problems, you can do the practical, and you don't get well-paid teaching, as we all know, but the goal just for me was when the children could turn and say, oh, do you mean if this? And you say, this will happen, and you say yes. And then they understood it, and that's gold dust for a teacher.
Have you ever heard from any of your students afterwards, wow, my teacher became this famous artist, how exciting, how...
Mostly because they came back to my old home, when I left my wife at the time, when I moved out, but I gave her the house, and so the children, some of these pupils came back with their own children to say, because they'd stayed at my house and said, this is how I want to bring my children up, which was kind of, that's flattering.
No better paying than that.
That was the real
nice one flattery.
Can you tell everybody listening what medium you use in painting? Do you use oils, acrylics?
These are acrylic, all acrylic that you see here now. I painted in oils as well, but with my techniques as I've developed over the years, I'm happy with acrylics because I build up a lot of layers. It's probably 10, 20 layers on any painting. And the fact it dries faster and I can build up. And some of what you're painting over comes through. And I think that gives it quite a lot of depth.
You made an entire series we see of dance,
right,
and shoes and people, men dancing, women dancing. What drew you to dancing?
The last exhibition I had was abstract, and I saw in the black lines in the abstract paintings, it's basically semi-landscape. But I saw this movement and I saw this energy in the movement, and that's the energy and movement I want to get. So,
Peter, your paintings are amazing. How do you capture, I know you didn't use me as a model for some of those paintings.
Yeah, this is in the middle, yeah.
Anyone who would feel my pants would rip. Two movements, everything, all my muscles would go.
So my question is, do you use a model to be able to develop
other people's photographs at the moment, and with the idea that given I can raise money, I've talked to the people, I've been to the ballet, New York City Ballet. I can't get permission to take my own photographs at the moment, and I'm hoping that by selling these, I can get into and take my own pictures, and then I can start working. But these are all from other people's photographs.
Did you draw any inspiration from Matisse or Degas?
Well, I saw Degas' work, a tremendous exhibition in Scotland at the Edinburgh Festival 20 years ago, and I loved his work.
Oh, your work is closer to Degas than Matisse. Matisse was very, very contemporary, even though he painted 50, 60 years ago. And you paint more realistic. Right. It's full of energy.
Abe. So he uses acrylic to add 20 layers of paint. He used you as a model, but just took 20 layers off to be able to get to see the body.
That's right.
I believe, looking at that exhibition as well, that Degas actually traced some of his drawing and reproduced them and then overworked
really?
Different ones.
Yeah.
But also in that exhibition I was doing etching as well at the time, and he did a lot of etching work. And going around and seeing how it developed his etchings was quite...
Yeah, I know, I've seen the Matisse and the Degas shows, Actually, a lot of them painted on paper sometimes,
Right.
and it was applied to canvas later, or wood, and it brings out so many different layers. You've actually added layers, they subtracted layers. Very similar, but you see the energy.
Again, I think it's kind of tradition. People used to put the paintings in the Royal Academy and be going there and painting while they're hanging.
It's like you got to know when it's finished, but Peter says he comes back and he paints over and over again until he really gets it. And we can enjoy it. It's fabulous work. I wish you were here, but you could see it from the picture. You know?
I'll have to get a personal tour. Can we see some other paintings of Peter's?
Now, yeah.
Can you explain this painting to us?
This Fandango by Peter.
Right. The metal one that you've just seen was Fandango 1, and this is Fandango. Again, the two canvases are equal in size, and it's the male and the female. And again, I mean, they're not particularly attractive things. I'm not interested in, and what I'm interested in is the energy, the movement, and the colours. And again, for me, it's pretty loose painting. This is pretty loose. Deliberately loose. I enjoy the looseness. The latitude was a lot tighter, a lot more.
Erica, can you go a little bit? Thank you.
That's what Peter wanted to extol and bring out is not necessarily the faces, but the energy and the movement and the dance itself. And you see those flowing skirts, that's very Vegas, much more than Matisse actually. And you can see a modern update on that, and it's his own style. And I love the fact that the background is totally dissonant from the actual people, because it's grayed down. But if you look closely at the gray, it's got every color in the rainbow in it.
Absolutely.
And he doesn't work with gray; he works with white in every color, and it's magnificent how they pop out of the canvas.
And it's very interesting. It's very interesting looking at it from this perspective. As you look at each individual dancing, each one has a different energy, a different form of movement, that the entire picture flows together. It's just absolutely amazing, and I hope you sell many of them.
And the same thing for the one with the males, by the way. It's one dance group, it's one set. It's not everybody doing their own thing, even though they're all working together. It's nice and captured. So much. Now let's go to your other painting.
These two are more studies, really, I guess, for bigger paintings. The Harlequin, this is Baryshnikov.
That's Baryshnikov? Why? Mikhail Baryshnikov?
But you wouldn't know that.
No, it looks more like Juliet to me.
I was lucky enough a couple of years ago in the Dominican Republic to have dinner with him. Great, wonderful guy. And then I saw White Nights, and again, amazing dancing. So, again, the colours here, I don't ever use black. I don't have that.
I don't see any black.
You get a build-up of colour that approaches black, but I think it's a bit more like.
I use a lot of umbers and ochres and ultramarine blue. And do you ever use paint gray or
absolutely
use neutral?
No, a lot of paints. What these will be paint gray.
Yeah,
like paint, which is kind of bluey.
Erica, can we get a close up of the ballerina's slippers?
They're in the bad state of repair.
Is there a podiatrist in the house? I think she just ripped a tendon.
The detail is absolutely spectacular. Where do you come up with your ideas? You have ballet slippers, you have a harlequin, you have floating dancers. Is it through your travels?
No, I go to the ballet, obviously. My wife once taught a guy that then went to start as well. His story was a little bit like Billy Elliot. He was a coal miner's son, and he went and did Broadway play annually. Right, so he was a bit like Billy Elliot. He was another guy, played football as well, and then he had to change in full-time ballet. So we've always been connected a bit with ballet.
So it's not because you saw Natalie Portman in the Black Swan, that wasn't it?
But I liked the old male ballet.
The old male ballet, yeah. Lovely. Usually they were all male.
Right.
Yeah.
Peter, what made you move to America? You're from England, you traveled all over the world. Was it your wife?
I've got a house and I'm a resident of Sicily, of Italy. And I've got a lovely house there to make some olive oil. And
Has a good life.
Shirley came to stay with us. She was a friend, my present wife. She was a friend of my twin brother from the Swinging Sixties in London. They were all friends.
Carnaby Street?
Well, Central London. They were both Swinging Sixties. And yeah, they met Yuriev, etc. and the whole, everybody. They were both with rich people and they had a wonderful time. And then she came to visit him. We fell for each other. And I've got a daughter here in New York and 2 grandchildren, but unfortunately my daughter died 4 years ago here of a brain tumor, a blastoma. So for me, it's even more important to stay here with my grandchildren.
How old are the grandchildren?
My little granddaughter's 10 on Saturday. And
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to her. What's her name?
She's Lila, and he's Finn.
Hello, Lila. Hello, Philip. Happy birthday to you, Lila. You have a great grandfather.
So no, my daughter was really, really special for me. She was a wonderful girl, and she got a first-class honours degree at Oxford University, and went to Glastonbury Pop Festival every year in Dock Martens. She was just all-round super girl. And then she'd never been ill, and then suddenly got this blastoma and died. With 2 young children.
Step back a little bit.
With 2 young children, and yeah, it's cruel.
What a shame.
It's cruel. But like
she gave you the 2 grandchildren in a full life.
Absolutely.
You have to appreciate it then.
Absolutely.
Look
That's
at that.
why I pick them up from school tomorrow. We see them everywhere.
As a song called Only the Good Die Young. The rest of us, we just live in the 90s, what we do.
Abe,
Yeah.
how many grandchildren do you have?
I have 4 from my daughter, and my son doesn't want to get married yet, but maybe one day.
I have 7. I have 7.
Wow, beautiful.
I've got 3 altogether. 2 here and one back in England, in Yorkshire.
Nice.
Love it.
Excuse me,
But
in Yorkshire.
the ones in Yorkshire was born in Tel Aviv.
Look at that.
So he's Israeli.
Wow.
The voice is Israeli.
Do they eat Yorkshire pudding?
Of course they do.
What is it?
Yorkshire pudding, and you know when we were in Yorkshire, growing up, it was a bit like batter, but you had it as a first course. You didn't have it with your roast beef.
Oh, it was not dessert.
You had it as a Yorkshire pudding first with the onion gravy in it, and you ate that. So as a child, you didn't eat too much meat because there wasn't any.
There wasn't any, so they give you that first as an appetizer. So we're going to sign off now with Peter Heywood, and then we're going to do the rest of the show. Peter's got a dinner date, and it was great meeting you.
Okay, 1 second. It was great meeting you, Peter. Thank you for coming, and thank you for coming, Peter. It was great meeting you.
God bless. God bless. How about
Happy birthday to Lila. Happy birthday, Lila. You should all stay healthy, be happy, stay safe, wear your masks, still sanitize. There are a lot of problems going on still. We hope everyone gets the vaccine really soon, and we hope to see you again in a week or 2. Abe, from here in Brooklyn, New York, and Neil Kerman Gallery, I say good night to you.
Good night.
Good night to everyone.